change is hard, and people feel safer staying in a situation that they're not extremely happy in rather than taking a giant risk to move forward. But we know you don't move forward unless you take a chance.
Hey, this is Brett Source, Dan Palmer coming to you from the Capital Gains Tax Solutions and Build It to Billions podcast studio. I'm grateful to be here. We are on this journey with you, not only just to learn about capital gains tax solutions, but also a journey of discovering how to best present and I think you would say sell, Dan, but more so guide people into making great decisions and uncovering motivations, desires, challenges, obstacles. We are studying with Rory Vaden and his brand builders what's called a do it now exercise or framework for guiding and discovering potential leads that we're going to help out to become clients. So Dan, what's a few things that you've learned so far in our journey here the last couple of weeks?
I think focusing on helping people is probably number one. Selling can get a bad rap. You think of used car salesmen or a high pressure or boiler room movie, things like that, where they're just cramming a product down someone's face, whether they want it or not. And I like the idea of uncovering, what their dream is and then what the obstacles are to that dream so that you can actually help them achieve the life that they would want. And so we're helping them remove the obstacles. We're setting the dream right in front of their face so that they can focus on that and make the necessary changes to actually achieve that dream. And so having that mindset of how do I help this potential client overcome the obstacles and the hesitation and the fear to make a decision that will make their life better.
100%. I think one of the biggest things I've learned as a part of that, the first part of this do it now process, which is the D stands for dream, is exactly that. Like asking, great question, becoming a great question asker and a great world-class listener. I think Rory says it well, if they're speaking 80% of the time, that's a good ratio, right? And you maybe 20%, but especially in the beginning, like if you don't establish where you're headed or where they want to be, what their dream is for their massive exit, for their stewardship of the wealth, for their freedom and flexibility for the time with their family, it's difficult to see if it's even it's actually, the foundation is not even there to build this plan for them. So D stands for dream. Here's some questions to ask. For dream, what is your dream that you're working towards, right? What do you hope to accomplish? What is your big goal right now? I think one of the ones I like to say is what matters to you the most. With your exit, with your wealth, with your goals, what are you focusing on trying to achieve? I know in commercial real estate, the big thing we used to ask is what's their motivation? Like if I talk to an agent who has a new listing, the first thing we would always say is, well, what's their motivation? Basically, what are they trying to accomplish? And if they didn't have a intrinsic deep motivation, we were taught really don't move forward, right? Because you're probably going to be, spinning your wheels, or they're actually not going to deal. And meaning they're not going to actually go through with listing and actually selling the property. You could get a listing, and if you don't have the true motivation, you're just kind of wasting everybody's time. And so another question to ask is, if you could have anything, what would that be? So this stands for the D part of dream. Moving to obstacle, Dan, what's the importance of the obstacle, and this is for on the do it now, the O part.
Yeah, just, normally in order for someone to achieve their dream, they normally have something that's in the way. And sometimes it might just be themselves, just the fear, the hesitancy to ask, Machiavelli said the change agent is going to have as an enemy everyone who is better off over the previous system and only mild supporters of people that are going to be very much better off in the new system. People don't like change. They're afraid of change. They'd rather stay in the status quo. And so sometimes that's the obstacle. Sometimes the obstacle is just, figuring out how to, in our line of work to basically, get to the sale, create the liquidity, figure out what they're trying to do, and put all the pieces together with a tax advantage plan to accomplish the dream that we had talked about before. And so there can be a wide variety of obstacles, but that's normally the hindrance to people getting their dream.
I think that's spot on. And I would add, like, it's important to clarify like what's standing in their way, because if there's nothing standing in their way, then they're already have achieved what they've achieved, right? And so it's kind of, that's the way Rory puts it. It's widening the gap. The obstacle helps them to widen the gap from where they are. I mean, where where they want to be, the dream, and then where they currently are. And the key here is to see, like, is it really an obstacle for you? Like this, for example, for us, it's like, do you really hate paying the capital gains tax? Like, would 20, 30, 40, 50% of your proceeds, is that very painful? Like, do you loathe that? Like it should be something where just like, I can't even imagine paying that. It's just so painful. And if that's a great sign that, hey, great, that's your obstacle, that's your challenge, that's a pain point. You want to be a great steward with the capital. You want to be able to remove that obstacle that's going to be painful. So here you simply ask, what is standing in their way so far, or why do they think they haven't been able to achieve their dream yet? I think as it applies to us for obstacles, they've done this 1031 exchange. It's not just the tax that's standing in their way. It's I think that the time and the energy that's being pooled or stuck in their current circumstance, right? The rich dad, poor dad, Robert Kiyosaki idea of truly passive income has not been achieved, right? They happen to still trade their time, their energy, their talents, all, those main things for this income that's coming in, right? This business they're running, this real estate they're owning, or even if they own a bunch of Bitcoin, it's still stressful to be the ups and the downs of it all. And you say, hey, what do you really want? Well, I want to be done with the toilets, trash, termites, the tenants. I want to be able to travel more. I want to be able to not have to think and be pulled back in. There's a quote by, the amazing show, the amazing movie, The Godfather, right? One of the first Godfathers. And he's something along the lines of, every time I try to get out, I get pulled back in, right? And I get a sense that's a lot of our clients. Like they try to get out of the business or the real estate, but it tends to pull them back in. So the cap gains tax is one of the obstacles. But the other thing that's an obstacle is that they're so consumed by their time, by the business, by the real estate. And so we want to paint that picture as well. What's standing in your way? Well, yeah, it's yourself that's being pulled back into it. So if you can sell it, that is a dream to be able to accomplish and unlock the roadblock. Any thoughts on that? I know I kind of rambled on that, but I'm just getting my thoughts on that. Any feedback on that?
No, I think that's right on. Change is hard. And people would feel safer staying in a situation that they're not extremely happy in, rather than taking a giant risk to move forward. But we know you don't move forward unless you take a chance. And you talk to people at the end of their life, their regrets aren't over the chances they take. The regrets are over the chances they refuse to take. I always wanted this career, but I was too afraid to try. I wanted to branch off and create my own business, but I had the safety and the security of a salary job. And so I just stayed there for my whole career. And you hear these regrets over the years. And so the obstacle now is, hey, something's stopping you from pursuing that thing that later in life you're going to look back on and you're going to say, if only I would have done what my heart desired, I would have been happier. And so figuring out exactly what that is now is providing a great service to the potential client, because we're helping them achieve those dreams. So at the end of their life, when they look back, they say, no, I gave it my all. I took the chance. I chased my dream. And we know, at least with our product, that if they do that, it actually is going to benefit them in an incredible way. So we know that they're going to look back and say, wow, that was life-changing for me.
Amen and amen. Yeah, we call it transformational exit planning versus just transactional exit planning. So here's some of the questions to ask yourself, and or if you're working with potential leads to help them on their exit. What has been the biggest obstacle you're bumping into to achieve that dream? Right? They've already talked about their dream, so now you get really clear on what the obstacle is. Second question: what are the roadblocks that have been holding you back? What do you think is most standing in your way between where you are and getting what you want? Where are you getting stuck right now as you try to pursue your goal? What are the challenges that you haven't been able to get past? What are the biggest issues you're dealing with? And now notice it's very like, hey, extreme ownership, like you, right? Like, it's really important as the advisor, as the real estate operator, as the capital gains tax solutions DST strategist, or if you're the business professional, you're the person who's helping them, but you're putting the ownership on them. It's really important that you're asking, like, why haven't you been able to achieve it? Or why haven't your team helped you to achieve it? Or what's been standing in your way? Is it the 1031 exchange? It doesn't even qualify for a 1031 exchange, whatever it is, like understanding that. Okay. So that's obstacle. The next thing we have on do it now is the I, and this stands for if. And this is the part where at this point, they've been talking and they've been sharing and they've been, expressing their desires and their challenges, their obstacles, right? And now this is the part where you're going to step in. We're going to step in as the. I think the good analogy that Rory says is you're like a doctor, right? And before you're going to prescribe something, you want to know if they actually have the desire to change, right? So if I could show you a way to overcome those obstacles that you just talked about and help you achieve your dream, is that something that you would be open-minded to? So talk about the I and the if part before we go into the next part.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of a summary. Mm-hmm. You've listened, and hopefully you've listened well. Most people aren't great listeners, and they have an idea in their head. And I think we've seen this on calls before. We have a desire of where we want it to go, and we're trying to steer it that way. And so we're not really listening to what they're saying. But when you hear someone and they honestly speak about their dream, which is one of the biggest things in their life. I mean, this is like, man, I would be really happy if I could accomplish this thing. And if you hear that clearly, and then you clearly hear them talk about the obstacles to getting there, then you can speak it back to them. And sometimes because they hear it from a different voice, it's the cry of their own heart. But when they hear it coming from another voice, it kind of stabilizes that this is the situation I'm in. If we could overcome this obstacle so that you could achieve this dream, would you be interested in that? Oh, that's my heart's desire. That's my dream. I mean, that's what a dream is. So I think helping them get there, helping them put it into a quick statement to where they can identify, I have a dream. This is what's keeping me from it. If I could overcome that, then I could actually achieve this thing that's been in my heart, maybe for a long time, for a lot of years. And so I think the if is a powerful statement that kind of leads them by kind of reiterating what they've already expressed. But because it's the cry of their heart, because it's their dream, it's not our dream, it's their dream that we're trying to accomplish. It becomes very powerful for them to move forward.
Spot on. And I'd say it sounds like it sets the compass to true north. The true north being their dream, right? It sets the vision for what winning actually is for them, right? And I think as the advisors, or as on this side, we want to make it safe for them. And like, you're right, Dan, like, we don't want to assume that we understand and we have heard their dream because we've done this with so many others, right? It's unique to each individual, and that connection there is so important. I think one of the cool things about Chris Voss, Never Split the Difference, and the Art of Negotiation, two things that can really help to establish the dream and the obstacle to make sure you're really hearing them is the mirror and the label, right? Hey, it sounds like, if I'm hearing you, it sounds like your dream is really this. It feels like your obstacle is really this, right? It sounds like, it seems like, it feels like, and it's summarizing, and it's getting the emotion and there's the summary behind it. I think we want to spend time there. I think a good and kind of get deeper. Like if they talk about a dream, well, go deeper on that. And I think a good way to do that is through the mirroring labeling is a good technique to help us slow down as advisors, right? To truly listen. I think the second part about that is asking a question, what else? This is a powerful question. What else? And it gives people a chance to say, well, let me bring up on this part of it, right? And what else, right? It's a good way to keep that really digging in, because the reality is a lot of people don't even spend their own time, and we all probably fault this with our goals or the things that we're writing down, the things we want to accomplish. How often are we reviewing those things? How often are we, talking with our spouse or family or close friends about these things? And so spending that time up front is really important. Good. And so now back to the end.
Saying is mirroring and labeling is a good way to dig down and make sure that we're hearing them accurately, and then asking what else is a way to deepen that understanding even further. It's the only reason I did that, because that's mirror and labeling. So
exactly.
If you heard Brett say mirror and labeling, it's giving back to them their own words, their own thoughts, maybe in your words, but their thoughts, and then asking them if that's accurate representation of what they were saying.
Yes. And then Chris Voss says it well. You'll know that because they'll say, that's right. They'll say, that's right. That's right. They'll say, that's right. And then they'll almost say it with like, oh my gosh, like I'm actually being heard. Like, that's right. Like you nailed it. And it's almost like an epiphany at the same moment. Like, or you maybe even said it in just a little slight way that helped them to even clarify or extra clarify it for them in their own mind and their own heart. And that's the key. You're looking for the words, that's right. And if there's not that connection there, you might say, it sounds like maybe I'm missing something. Is there maybe anything else you want to share there, right? And then it gives them a chance to say, well, it was more like actually this, and they'll correct you, right? And then great, and then you can say, okay, so it sounds like it's more like this. Yes, that's right. Boom. Now you've got your true north for the dream. You get your true north for the obstacle, or I guess it would be the true south, like, get away from that, right? The obstacle you're trying to get away from. And so then you move to, if I could show you a way to overcome those obstacles and help you achieve your dreams, that's something that you'd be open-minded to. A part of this too is important that I'm learning on some other sales with another coach that I have, is it's not just them. It's important to say who else is as stakeholder in this. For example, your spouse. For example, your kids. For example, your estate and like your vision for the stewardship of the wealth moving forward after you pass away. So it's actually broadening it a little bit. Who else do we want to bring into the conversation and consider what they're because spouses. I was talking with a spouse yesterday, and her husband's been in business for 50 years with a partner, and they have a building in California, and she definitely wants to sell, and he kind of wants to sell. The partner doesn't want to sell, and he's 85. There's this whole thing going on, and I'm like, you got to get them to the table. Otherwise, what we're talking about is we're kind of spinning our wheels. And I'm like, but she wants him to be free from it. And the other guy, doesn't want to pay the tax. And it's kind of this whole thing where we're trying to work through. But it's important to figure out who the other stakeholders are. And then you'd ask, is that something you'd be excited about? So if I could show you to overcome these obstacles and help you achieve your dream, is that something you'd be excited about? Is that something you take a serious look at? Is that something you'd be committed to implementing? Is that something you would invest into? So it's just getting a general gauge of commitment and desire. And Rory says it well. If at this point, after you've spent time, and this might take, 30, 45 minutes, you might take 15 to 20 minutes establishing their dream and their obstacles, digging in, and then you're moving into this next piece here. After 20 minutes of that, you're going to establish their desire for what you might be able to offer. Notice, like Rory says, that we haven't even talked about deferred sales trust, 1031 exchanges, investments, what it is, how it works. That's a big problem, I think, when we spin our wheels, is if we let the other person come in as the patient, if you will, and they're dictating what they want to hear, and we're just, we're saying all these things, and we're feeling really good that we're saying these things because we're really smart, and they're kind of learning stuff. But is it even relevant to their situation? No, maybe not. We don't know, right? And so this is where we are establishing the authority on our side, and we're establishing their dreams. We're asking for their opportunity to see if they're open to it. So that leads into the next thing, which is if they say yes in an affirmative, it leads to the next thing, which is T, which stands for teach. So Dan, what did you learn about the T and the teach part?
Do you want to do the pressure-free promise?
Yeah, go through the pressure-free promise first.
That actually comes first.
Yes, you're right. Yes, Dan, please, let's talk about that. What is that?
Yeah, so pressure-free promise is just basically letting them relax, that they're not going to get hard sold.
Yeah.
And now you've expressed their dream and their obstacle, And you're basically letting them know, hey, we're not going to cram you into something if it doesn't overcome your obstacle and fulfill your dream.
Yeah.
If it works for you and if it's good, we're going to move forward. And if not, we're going to tell you the truth. And so, this is basically how it goes. Well, I'm going to share with you what we do and how it might be able to help you. If you like what you see and you feel it will help you move closer to where you want to be, then go ahead and sign up for it today. But I want to let you know right up front that if you don't like it, that's completely okay too. I promise that I won't talk you into anything or convince you to do something that isn't right for you. My only goal is to help you figure out what is best for your needs. And my only real request is that you just let me know clearly one way or the other if you think this will help you. Fair enough?
It's so good, Dan. It's so good. By the way, I printed this out right here. And if you are a business professional, here it is right here. If you can see that, it's gonna go. But transcribe it, print it out, and then edit it for your tone or your feel or whatever whatever it is that you're selling. This is so huge, Dan, right? Because what we're doing is we're making it safe for them to say no, right? And by the way, if they want to say no, we want them to say no. In fact, Rory taught us in the training that a maybe is the worst, right?
Yeah.
A no is a good. There's power in hearing no, right?
Maybe too long. You want to set a timeline and then make it a no for them.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
They're just hanging in the maybe. It's like, okay, well, let's pick this up next Tuesday, and if they don't pick it up Tuesday, you say, yeah, it's actually a no, and move on.
And by the way, for what we sell, what we do a lot of times, people find is 30, 60, 90 days before they close, and it's a high stake thing, and if they do not engage, then it's going to be too late. I mean, the tax code is just going to make it too late. They're going to get constructive receipt. They're going to have to pay the tax unless they can do a best 1031 exchange with us, and then we can kind of kick the can a little bit and then get a little more time. But that is so key, right? But this pressure-free promise is also used not only before we go into teaching, right? And I say teach in particular because we're actually going to teach, and we're really not going to sell. We're going to teach what we do, and see how it could fit. But this pressure-free promise is important because it's going to lower, hopefully, their emotional state to be able to feel like they can just connect with us and just talk. That's what we really want to do, a conversation. Second, you want to use the pressure-free promise anytime you feel like there's another, let's just say, either decision point or vital part of the sales process, right? Or the relationship process, right? Know that this is something you can come back to. Hey, I want to remind you that what I'm sharing with you, if at any point you don't feel like it's a great fit, please let me know. And at any point I don't think it's a good fit, I'm going to let you know. I want to let you know that I don't want to convince you to talk you into anything that's not going to fit and help you overcome your obstacle that we talked about and achieve your dream. My only ask is that at any point you think it's not a good fit, just clearly let us know that, and we can, that's it. Like, right. We're not pressuring it. And we want you to know that. So that is the precursor to the teach or the T. So now let's talk about T, Dan. What's T?
Yeah. Teach is, basically giving them a high level understanding of how the thing that we do is a solution to their obstacle and can help them achieve their dream. And so, it's easy to geek out on what and try to just share everything that you know about it because you've gone so deep in it. But for them, the most important thing is that you attach it to their obstacle and you attach it to their dream. Mm-hmm. And so you're given a 10,000 foot view of the thing that you do, mm-hmm. but with the goal of, hey, this is what we do, this is how we do it, and this is how it's going to overcome your obstacle and help you achieve your dream.
Nailed it. Perfect. By the way, what you do so good there, you made it precise, just like Rory teaches us, like make it precise, right? And it's a high level overview of the process, basically like this, kind of the step-by-step or the general framework. And in fact, we're in the process of creating, we have our process, but we're actually in the process of like making it even clearer, like on a visual. This tends to be like a visual, kind of a step-by-step. Here is the key pillars. You're more so doing, a broad overview rather than going really deep, right? And you're right, Dan, the excitement of the salesperson or us or whoever the teacher or the guide is to get, just to go like, oh, you're just like, and you're like, whoa, you're gonna overwhelm them, like, and it's gonna come give you either overwhelming, it's gonna be complex, it's gonna be too much, and so this is the general process. Exactly right, you nailed it, Dan.
Say you were selling a car, and you didn't take the time to talk to the person at all to find out what they're looking for, why they're looking for, and you get to the teach and you start talking about, the braking system, like how fast you can go from 0 to 60, gas mileage. You're going into every little detail of the car, and all they care about is that it had an emblem on the back, because I just want this type of car. And if you would have listened to them, or if they said, hey, what I care about is I've got young kids and I want a safe car, and you're talking about how fast it is and how, and all this stuff that has nothing to do with the safety, and you've missed them, you've lost them because you didn't attach your presentation to their dream and their obstacle, because you didn't listen to them. But if you were to listen to them, you say, hey, forget a lot of this other stuff. I might touch on it, but I'm going to focus on the thing that they talked about. I'm going to focus on how this vehicle does exactly what they're looking to find out of a vehicle. And it's the same thing with whatever you're selling. Make sure that you cater your teach section to what they have expressed is their desire.
So good, Dan. You know what I think about? It really sounds like you want to make sure that you're always making it about them, because it is all about them, and not making it about you and your ego and the things and all those little nuances. Now, if they ask you for that, right? And they say, hey, I'm just curious, like, what are some of these other things? Yeah, feel free to dive into that a little more, but this is really all about them. It has to be, it needs to be. And if it's not, then you can get caught up in what you think is best, right? Which could get you off of the true north. Okay. So that is the T and teach. And again, like Dan said, as a reminder, as an advanced tip, make sure that you reference back to their original dream and obstacles. Okay. Let's move into the next part of the do it now process, which is N, and N stands for numbers. Okay. So I'm going to cover this one here, Dan, and you kind of give me your insights on it. I'm going to kind of read some of the notes here. This is the most advanced component of do it now. And once you learn to do it effectively, it's a game changer, right? It's the numbers part. Now, the goal of this section is to put the value of the abstract dream into practical perspective. And if at all possible, we want to quantify the value of their dream empirically. Okay, so this is the part where at least I'll apply it to our strategy, Dan, right? We jump into the Excel file and the side-by-side comparison, right? This is not using it, and this is using it, right? And this is so powerful, right? Because not using it, you don't have to pay the fees, but you pay your tax, and this, let's assume the same returns. Using it, there's a one-time legal fee, there's the ongoing fees. Let's assume the same interest rate of earnings, the same investments, and let's just look at it after 5, 10, 15 years on a side-by-side comparison, and let the numbers, and in this scenario, show the value, prove the value, right? Numbers don't lie, right? Numbers are just numbers. And so the key here is empirically value and quantify the numbers and tie it to their dream. So you do this by asking the prospect to share some numbers with me of how much it'd be worth to you to achieve this dream. For ours, Dan, talk about truly passive income, and even just their current income from the asset they're selling, and establishing the baseline of what's your passive income, what's your truly passive income, and then let's kind of bring it together on our strategy so people can kind of maybe try to apply it to theirs.
Yeah, I think a lot of times, people that are holding real estate or really even a business, there's so many expenses, and there's so much stress, and there's so much work that goes into managing it, and there's so many unknowns. You don't know what the insurance rates are going to go up to. You don't know if you're going to have a tenant leave and not be able to fill that spot and have a couple months where no one's paying into it. And so, you have all these unknowns, and sometimes because of the unknowns, because of the expense side of the ledger, you're not really having as much passive income as you could have if you exited it, which is a crazy thing to think about, but it's true. And so someone's managing this thing for 15, 20 years, and they're sleepless nights, and they're stressed, and, not feeling good, and, worrying about all kinds of things. And all of a sudden they exit and say it's, $2 million building, and, they're able to basically invest it at 10% net of all fees. That's $200,000 a year, or 16,000. Was that 16,000 a month? Yeah. Doing math off the top of my head.
Yeah.
So if that 16,000 a month oftentimes is much higher, that passive cash flow than what they were receiving by managing the asset. And it's consistent and it's regular, and 16,000, 16,000, 16,000 for the full term. And then they look in the trust and the $2 million is still there. And for the first time in their life, they go, oh my goodness, I feel like I can be free. Yeah. I feel I can get out of the rat race. I feel like I can get out of the stress, and I can increase my truly passive income and I'm hands off. It's being, and so for a lot of our clients, when we can paint that picture with the numbers, because the numbers are visual, you can talk about, oh, this and that, and this is how it worked. But like when they see the hard numbers on paper and they see what's being produced, and they know investments and they know spending and they know taxes, you lay it all out honestly and you say, hey, here's the numbers. Of course, you can alter these numbers. If you spend more than what you say on the spreadsheet, it's going to be different. But if all these things are equal, apple to apples, like look at what happens. You have a greater passive cash flow, and at the end of 10 years, that asset is still there in the trust, kicking off wealth for you for the rest of your life. It's powerful. It's a powerful visual.
It's so powerful. And the other thing I was thinking as you said all of this, I think part of it is we have been conditioned to work really hard and trade our time for dollars for generations, really, right? And this is instilled into Americans. You go to work and you get a paycheck, or you even go on the business and you make X amount of money. And now there's this moment of this exit where all of a sudden you're telling me I'm going to get, all of my time back, and I'm going to double my income. We typically double people's income. And this is where we really define truly passive income, right? Because really a lot of these properties that they own, although they have property management, it's still not truly passive. I mean, they still have things that are pulling them back in. Back to that quote by, The Godfather, right? I try to get out, but they pull me back in. Like, there's always something, right? And so this it's really an identity thing that's shifting here. It's a massive identity shift. And the emotional part of like control of, I know that if I go work on my business, I have the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years, I'm going to make 250, $1 million, 500, whatever it is. I know. And now I'm leaving that business. So my identity that's tied to this and this emotional security, which is part of, that's a good thing, right? I mean, it's a good thing to have that, is now shifting. And so this dynamic is my identity shifting. And so I think that's part of the hardest thing here. And you're saying, I can cut my time either completely off from my work. So that's part of my identity I have to be thinking about. Or maybe it's subconscious, you're not thinking about it. 2, you're going to increase my income. You're going to diversify my wealth. You're going to give me more liquidity. It starts to get a little bit like, oh, it feels like it's too good to be true. Like, is this really going to be that easy? And it's hard. And so this is something that we work with people through, but it's really them have to working through that. Dan, any thoughts on that? I'm just kind of thinking out loud on that, but I feel like that's a big part of it.
Another thing that I like about the numbers, because, cost always comes into any sales process, and, whatever you're selling, I'm a big believer that the price doesn't matter. Sometimes a higher price actually helps you because they go, whoa, this must be really valuable. You charge more than other people. You must be the best, and so you can actually be on the winning side, but the visual of the numbers impacts their view of the cost, because something being expensive or not expensive is comparative. You're comparing it to something else. But when they see the numbers on paper and they go, oh my goodness, look at what this is worth. Now, like, what's being charged isn't very expensive at all compared to what I'm getting. It's comparative. And so for me, I like showing the numbers, because what we say is, hey, let us show you how to make this an investment, not an expense. Well, when you see the numbers on paper, you realize this is not expensive. This is actually very inexpensive for me to achieve the dream and overcome the obstacle that's standing in my way. And the numbers paint that picture for our clients. And so I like going over that, because then if they ever say, oh, this is expensive, I go, oh, do you think so? Because based on the numbers I saw, it looks like an incredibly inexpensive deal for you.
Spot on. And by the way, the way to ask that question is, what would it be worth to you if this dream came true? How much would you be making if you achieved your goal, right? What percentage of your potential are you reaching right now? And what percentage do you feel like you're actually capable if we conquer these issues? these questions are, you got to tailor them to whatever you're selling, right? How much are you making now, and how much do you think you could be making if we solve these obstacles? That's one for us all the time. Like, Warren and Catherine's a great example. They're making $120,000 on a $2.5 million valuation of their property, business, real estate. We increased to 190, right? And then we give them back all their time, diversify their wealth. I mean, this whole thing, right? And that's a really neat way to really get empirical numbers on this. This creates a reference points for when we introduce the price later, is what he says. Although on ours, we just literally put it all in there right there. Just like, here it is. Like, this is great, right? The greater the value of their dream, the more affordable the price will seem. That's kind of, it sounds like what you were just saying a second ago, Dan, right? The greater value of their dream, the more affordable the price will seem. And this is considered kind of the payoff. Okay, so we've gone do it now. We've gone dream, obstacle, if question, teach, numbers. Now we're going to kind of round this out to overview, okay? So this is really interesting. Roy says this part of it is the first time in the entire conversation where you actually talk about your product. Now, what's interesting is we kind of talked a little bit about it in the numbers part. I think, again, back to ours, like this isn't, when we're learning about these frameworks, it's going to be, you got to customize, and some of them are going to mix and match. But generally speaking, I think this is a good barometer. You've gone through all of these.
We're addressing it in teach.
Yeah. So we're kind of do a hybrid of teach and overview, you know what I mean? So that is interesting here as I'm kind of taking in this training. So you might say this is the first time you're actually doing what people often refer to when they think of selling, but don't think of it as selling, think of it as promoting. It should not be cheesy or pushy, and it should also not be boring. You should think of it as if you were telling your best friend about an awesome movie you saw at a restaurant you went to. I think this is a good part to bring in, like stories where you could say, hey, you really remind me of this client. You really remind me of this client. Let me tell you about this story or this transformation. And really you're just promoting it, right? You're promoting, you're sharing the transformation, and you're creating what could be for them in an overview with your actual product. You are enthusiastically sharing with them what is awesome about it and why you think they will love it. By the way, you have now some of the authority to say that because you did such a good job of listening to their dream and their obstacle, right? Showing them the numbers, right? Establishing the rapport. You've kind of like earned the opportunity. Now, here's the key, and I think this is something I gotta say to myself, right? Don't overshare too many details. Remember to sell the sizzle, not the steak, right? Believe it or not, they don't need a lot of information. They just need to be excited about how your product will help them overcome their obstacles and achieve their dream. Dan, what do you think about the overview? Any other thoughts on that?
Nope. That is exactly what we've been saying the whole time. Don't overshow the details. The sizzle and the steak line, to me, that just means make sure that you're focusing your presentation of your product on what they are trying to achieve.
Yep.
Like the car analogy I told before, like figure out why they're trying to buy it and then focus on that part of the presentation. Mm-hmm. You might touch on the other things, but why are you going to focus on something that they're not interested in? That's not going to be a winning thing for you. So remember to sell the sizzle, not the steak. To me, that just means focus on, focus on the thing that they're looking for, their dream and their obstacle. Perfect.
I'll also add too that I've learned over the years to, have a time set for your meeting. And as we're progressing, I think it's better to have like an hour set, 45 minutes to an hour to get through all of this. But realize that you may not take the whole time. You might go through quicker than this for some people. But at the same time, there's others who will continue to ask questions and ask for details. And it's okay to cover those, but you might cover them on the next call, on the next proposal, or after they sign the conditional engagement agreement in our situation, right? And dig into that. But have a deadline like, hey, we're coming up here, and I'm happy to answer more questions on our next call. But this is kind of the next steps. But yeah, you're providing the overview. Okay, we're moving into the last part of this here. This is this is the way Rory says it. Again, I think we kind of combine it in the teach section, Dan. He says this is the section where you tell them how much it costs to do business with you. Everyone who buys anything at any time always wants to feel like they got a great deal. They want the way that you deliver the price has everything to do with whether or not they feel like it's a good price. So this is where like context may come into play to say, this is what it generally costs if you were to do it on your own, or if you're not to do it, or what it would cost you for the tax. I'm trying to apply it to ours and give them just a general corporate trustee might be 1% to 2% by themselves. With us and the financial advisor all in, or about 1.5% to 2%, no matter how well you invest the funds. So we're trying to make it institutional and get good things. So you basically are giving a higher mark and then saying where you're at, rather than just saying where you're at. You're kind of giving, and this helps people to feel like they're getting, and it is true, they are getting a good value, but this is just a kind of an advanced tip there. Yes, okay. The technique to use when delivering the price is called anchoring. You typically don't want to just say what the price is. Instead, you want to deliver the price relative to other concepts, such as how much will they make from it, the impact it will bring to them, the cost of competitors, the amount of time savings, how much it will save them, the painful expense it will prevent them from experiencing. Okay, so that's the overview. Let me just keep moving here to do the W. So the W is kind of the final stage here for do it now. The next stage is the process of determining if the prospect wants to move forward, okay? So you could say something as simple as, do you want to do this, right? Based on what you've heard so far, would you like to move forward? Would you like our help? Do you want to do this? So it could be as simple as that. But there are much more graceful and effective ways to bring someone to a point of decision. This is called closing, and we cover it in detail in the next section. And so we ran out of time on this one, but Dan and I will come back and we'll cover closing and some objections on some future shows here. But this is it. And by the way, I want to let you know that Brand Builders is absolutely amazing. And this is the content we're learning from Rory Vade and his team. So I'm a part of their coaching program, and they're amazing. Go to brandbuilders.com to actually literally sign up if you are a mission-driven messenger and are looking for ways to advance whatever it is that you're trying to make an impact in this world. They're incredible. And so that is the content. I want to make sure I give credit where credit's due. And this is our way of sharing our journey and encouraging you to take action, whether you are a potential client of ours listening to this, to give you a feel for how we approach what we call, servant selling or servant guiding through the process of the deferred sales trust, or you are a business professional that is looking to sell whatever you're selling and help people, right? And I guess that's really the key here. Dan, any last thoughts for everybody before we leave?
Yeah, I just, I like the structure of this, because sometimes we just kind of get in and haphazardly have conversations with people and cross our fingers and hope that we end up with a sale. And what I like about this is there's a structure to it where, do it now, dream, obstacle, if, teach, numbers, overview, want. And you can put it in your mind to where you're accomplishing in each step of that conversation something that's going to lead you to the result that you're hoping to get, which is to help somebody. And so, that's the biggest thing I like about it, is it creates a structure for people that are maybe really good at selling, but are kind of haphazardly doing it, or wondering, how am I going to teach my team? Because what I've realized in life is there's a lot of people that can do things and they don't necessarily know why they can do them. It's because they're gifted, but then they want to teach someone so they can get their time back. And if that person doesn't have the same level of knowledge and skill as they have, then the person has no chance of duplicating them. But if you have a structure that you can put them into, where someone with less talent, less knowledge can still do what you do naturally, now you freed yourself up to have someone else on your team handle that important role that up until that point only you could do. And that's truly freeing for entrepreneurs to be able to teach the things that they're naturally good at. And people think it's easy. It's not. It's hard to teach someone else to do what you do, because you're doing it. You're not even thinking about why you're good at it. You're naturally gifted. And so this structure allows you to replicate yourself in your employees.
I couldn't say it better myself. He's Dan Palmer. I'm Brett Swartz. I want to thank everyone for listening. Please share this so that can make an impact too. Go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com if you want to get started to build a capital gains tax exit plan for yourself, or maybe one of your clients, and we can work together with you. If you're a financial advisor, CPA, M&A advisor, real estate professional, we want to work with you. We want to connect with you. We want to make an impact with you together. Thank you so much for listening or watching, and we'll talk to you all again real soon. Bye now.